the study we were doing about the 7 churches, and I guess depending on what the class wants to do, looking at the next chapters in the book of Revelation, if you guys would like to, we could continue. In a lot of ways, I don't necessarily like to study as a class the book of Revelation because so many times we have kind of set in stone things that are not necessary. Like, take for example, the 2 witnesses in the book of Revelation. People think because of certain things that are said in the Bible that they can definitively say who the 2 witnesses are going to be. It doesn't say who they are. There's some scripture that could lead us to believe who they may be, but I'm not going to definitively say who they are. I'm going to say there's 2 witnesses. So I don't know. I can't say because of this and that. It's going to be for sure. It says, "Blessed is he that readeth the book." So it's good to look at and study the book of Revelation. I'm not going to say that it's a bad thing. It's so foreign and different from the rest of the Bible that people want to, in some ways, throw it out. But it does give us a glimpse into future events that are going to occur. And again, some people believe if you start in chapter 4 and go till chapter 19, a lot of those things they believe have already occurred. I'm not really in that camp. I don't think that Revelation chapter 5 has occurred yet. But first of all, I'll just give you the Missionary Baptist Church timeline for the book of Revelation. So we looked at the Apostle John's first 3 chapters were present tense for him. He got the word from Christ about the 7 churches, and we looked at that. It's the 7 churches. In chapter 4, he sees a door. We picture a door like that, right there. If you picture a door that he would describe, it would be an opening with usually a curtain. Well, there's all kinds of doors that they had in New Testament times during his time. It might not necessarily be that. But he sees what he describes as a door to heaven. So he goes into the door to heaven, and the angel says, "You're going to see things that are going to happen in the future." Not present tense, future tense. So from chapter 4 to chapter 11 is the events that are in the book of Revelation that talk about the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period. That is what Revelation 4 through 11 talks about. Chapter 12 is a recap of the past. if you look at that, again, it talks about Satan and the children of Israel and the struggle that has gone on since Christ was, well, the whole time about the children of Israel. Satan has not liked the children of Israel since God chose them. God chose them, Satan hated them. So that's chapter 12. Chapter 13 to chapter 19 is the last 3.5 years of the tribulation period. The end of chapter 19 is the beginning of the second coming of Christ, like it's described in Zechariah chapter 12, Joel chapter 2, all of those things. The church's official, I guess, stance on when the rapture occurred would be somewhere in chapter 4, before the tribulation period arrives. Now, why does the church believe that the tribulation period occurs before chapter 4, chapter 5 in the book of Revelation? Is because of first, for me, in doing studies on this, 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 and verse 10. It says, let me get my glasses. When he shall come to be glorified in his saints and to be admired in all them that believe, because of our testimony among you was believed in that day. Is that first or second? And look at chapter 2 and verse 16. No, it's 2 Thessalonians. Oh, no, I am in 2 Thessalonians. It's 1 Thessalonians. That's why it doesn't make any sense to me. Chapter 1 and verse 10, he says, that makes a lot more sense. And to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, even Jesus, which delivered us from the wrath to come. And in chapter 2 and verse 16, it says, forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, fill up their sins all the way, for the wrath is come upon them to the uttermost. And then in chapter 5 and verse 9, it says, for God hath not appointed us to wrath, talking about the saved and the church, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. I'll tell you, if you look at all the examples that he points to, like Noah and the flood, they were delivered from that through the ark, and the picture is that they were above the water, now above the wrath of God. And the terminology here, when you look at the tribulation period, it's for when God pours his wrath out on the earth for the last time. It's the end judgment. It's the end of all things. And so in chapter 20 is the marriage of the Lamb. It's after his second coming, we see that. And then there's what some people might say is the 1,000-year honeymoon, or the millennial reign. I don't know of any place in the Bible where he calls it a honeymoon. I just see that there's a 1,000-year reign. And many people just don't believe that that's going to be, well, I guess they need to read the whole Bible, because a 1,000-year reign is going to happen. There's 8 chapters in the last part of Ezekiel, I think it's chapter 40 to 48, that just describe all of the millennial reign in detail, what's going to occur and happen and things that are going to progress through all of that. So in chapter 21 of the book of Revelation is the end. He says in the first part of that, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. After the last part of the millennial reign, at the end of chapter 20, is the Gog and Magog and all of that description for when man decides, we don't want to be under the reign of Christ any longer. This 1,000-year thing is for the birds, and they come against the Lamb for the last time. And he judges them. It's not going to end well for them. And then we see a new heaven and a new earth. I've been looking at that for a very long time. To me, I think he's going to make a completely new earth, a whole new one. It's not that hard for him that spoke the entire cosmos into existence for him to make a new one. I mean, for one thing, if you measure the city, it's like 1,500 miles cubed. In order for that to exist on an earth, it'd have to be a big one, a bigger one than we have today. So this is a futuristic, it's kind of a poetically written book by John that goes from chapter 4, verse 1 to chapter 20 and the end of it, and just kind of gives us this overview of what he sees. I think he described it as best he could. There was times where he was told not to write some things because it would, I don't know. There's some things in the Bible God wants us to be surprised on. He told Daniel certain things that Daniel saw in the future not to write. He told Ezekiel certain things not to write in the book of Ezekiel. So, and I think mainly because we're supposed to live by faith, God doesn't want us to have an idea of whether his return is tomorrow, in a year from now, 10 years from now, 1,000 years from now. It doesn't matter. He just tells us to watch and to wait and to anticipate. I didn't mean that for that to rhyme, but Sister Kathy, did you have a comment? You almost looked like you were like, okay. We might need to be ready for the possibility that our outlook and interpretation, the way we have read all of those things, might not be 100% correct. I'm not saying that the official look at the Bible, just like I've outlined it, is 100% the way it's going to happen. I believe so. But we need to be ready for the eventuality of the way that we have looked at all these things Are we correct? Are we right? I can't say that for certain, for 100%. Things that are alluded to, I've read those things in 1 Thessalonians. You read some of the things in the Old Testament, it kind of looks like the time of the rapture is before the tribulation. I believe so, that God, is going to usher these things in. But could we go through that?
All the the seals and stuff. Are you saying that's all the wrath of God?
Mm-hmm.
Because he specifically talks about the wrath in certain seals.
That's true.
So there's a lot of seals before that that's not specifically the wrath of God. Are you saying the wrath of God is everything that's poured out on the earth? Is that how you're defining
Yeah, I guess the official church stance that I've been taught all my life is once the seals begin, it's the beginning of the tribulation, the start of his outpouring of wrath. So
there's a difference between the wrath that's being poured out and the seals before that.
yeah.
I mean, specifically says.
Mm-hmm. For the
But there's a period of setup and establishing wrath of God. It doesn't appear immediately.
right.
We got to remember that one seal opens up the next seal.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't get to C without going to A and B.
Right.
So, yeah, it's part of the process, but people aren't going to immediately see it.
Right. And the way we read it, you see, and how long did some of this stuff, it almost looks like people tried for a while to open the seals, and nobody was found to open it. How long did that take? As you look at those, to us it looks like a brief moment in time, but John said he wept much because no man was found. I mean, I don't know if Bill tried when we were there. Brother Shannon, he's like, I can open that. But really.
The majority of people who call themselves Christians think that the whole, the tribulation and millennial reign is, like an elaborate metaphor
Mm-hmm.
for the church conquering the world and setting up, a
Yeah.
democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Basically. That's what the Catholics and most of the Protestants believe.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people out there who are going to try to open up the seals because they think that that's their job.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
it's clear it's not going to happen.
yeah.
What they have to stand on.
Mm-hmm. Sister Kathy.
Anybody wants a good laugh? When I was little and didn't understand about the wax seals you put on letters,
Mm-hmm.
I thought the seals the Bible was talking about was the animal.
Oh. Yeah.
I was little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Washington can be very confusing.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I wish that the English language was a little more plain on certain things, like a seal could, or you could row in a row and have a row with Bill while I'm rowing. I hate that. There should be one word for taking an oar and moving it in the water, and one for this row of pews. I hate all that. There should be some respect of God to people are pretty frivolous about this whole thing. They're like, I remember 2012 where that guy kept talking about God's going to come back or whatever. And all of these people, when it didn't happen, took all these pictures of like, like a bunch of clothes on the ground, took a picture of it, like, yeah, the rapture happened, or this guy's gone or whatever, just kind of mocking the whole situation. And I don't know if we're mocking God or we're mocking the guy that said it would happen, or both. But people are pretty. The language in here is so extraordinary compared to everything else. We see a lot of things in the Bible that tell us how to live, how to treat each other, how to deal with certain situations and all of that. And now you get to the book of Revelation, and chapter 4 on just talks about things that are so foreign to us, things we've never seen, things that we've never experienced. I know many people aren't desirous of looking at it because it is so different. They'll like read through it and go, wow, I guess we'll see when we see, or whatever. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people that are they kind of check out when you start talking about it because they're like, I don't know, but God put it in there for a reason, Brother Shannon, do you have? Okay. I thought I saw, but I don't know. In a nutshell, do I believe exactly the way our church fathers have taught us? Pretty much. It all makes sense for the rapture to occur and usher in the tribulation period, for us not to experience God's wrath. The first part of it, I think a lot of, like you say, there's going to be quite a few religious people that are like, well, we're still here, so obviously the rapture didn't happen. What was that occurrence? And that's, I believe, part of the strong delusion that's going to show up. All these, the Pope's still going to be here, and like, well, the rapture couldn't have happened. I'm still here, and whatnot. So, right. And, we be surprised on who we see when we get to heaven. But at the same time, if they're following what they say they believe, I don't see them going when we go. They don't believe salvation correctly. So, you see in the Bible where many people come to God during the tribulation period because of what they have heard. I think it's chapter 14 or 15 where the angels come and they just fly in the air and preach the gospel. I've said a lot of times I wish they would do that today. That way I wouldn't have to. It wouldn't have to be my job. You just have an angel fly and you go, see, listen to that guy. But our job is to do their job right now. Bad, ugly times, ugly things that we've never seen before. And some people try and explain a lot of that away, like the things that come out of the ground and sting a guy and he can't die for 5 months even though he wants to, but he's in cerebral pain. I was looking at some of the things around, like there's actually ants that can sting you, and that is a powerful. There's certain ants that they don't bite you; they sting you, and they're large. They're not small, And then some of these other creatures that God has influenced after the curse to be, like a jellyfish thing, those box jellyfishes, or, there's certain things we can point at that you, you see all these things, it's like, okay, some of this makes sense, but yet again, it's things in the future that we've never experienced. Many of the things that we can look at in the Old Testament and the New Testament is like, we could see the custom, or we could experience the, whatever they're saying. We can, in some way, come alongside, and we understand because of maybe their culture, or in Capernaum, when he said certain things, you could look at Capernaum and, oh, I understand why he said that. When he stood and said, thou art Peter, and on this rock, the church had, or that area had a great big rock, like the rock of Gibraltar, but not, it was a physical reference to some of the things that he said when he was there, All of these biblical things that we can look at and understand in so many nuances. But the book of Revelation is different. It's just, and that's why so many people, out of all the books that we studied, they don't tend to want to look at it, because it's just so different. But then again, you get to see God, what he's doing,
I think a lot of people are kind of desperate to get stuff down. I was told that some of those creatures were like attack helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had to have like a corollary that
Mm-hmm.
you can see in your mind, you can imagine exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Based on what you see today, and it's like, oh, John just didn't know those were attack helicopters or holograms.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I've heard so many people say definitively, in chapter 6 and this, that was a tank. John's never seen a tank, but that was a tank. Yeah. They do the prop wash and stuff like, I wouldn't steer us in that direction. Go ahead. No, I don't. Did you have a? So, does the class want to go on, or do we want to look at? I guess I would go back to like 1 Thessalonians and go through that. There's a lot of places in the Bible that we haven't been yet, of course.
If you want to know, why don't you take a vote? How many for Revelation and how many for Thessalonians?
Oh, we could do that. How many for Revelation, if you guys want to keep going? How many for 1 Thessalonians? Looks like it's 1 Thessalonians. I kind of want to finish our thought. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about with the churches, the 7 churches that we went through? One of the things, as I read through that, because I've read through this book a few times, let's see if I can find that. Oh, I should have put it in my stuff, but anyway, one thing that I want to talk about real quick is the Catholic Church has really taken a word that's in the Bible and made it completely something that it is not. And that is the word saint. It's kind of like when people talk about a hero, that this comedian's like, if you're a hero, and people ask you, are you a hero? You have to say no. Then you're a hero. But so many times you see in the Bible where it talks about saints and sainthood and people who are a saint. And what is the biblical definition of that? And I've seen some pastors that aren't afraid of the word because Catholicism has just taken it ran with it, really made it something that it is absolutely not. The best definition I've ever seen of who or what a saint is Psalm chapter 50. In Psalm chapter 50, in verse 1, it says, "The mighty God, even the Lord, hath spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God hath shined. Our God shall come and shall not keep silence. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. He shall call to the heavens from above and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice." That is saints. He has Old Testament ones and he has New Testament ones. The New Testament one would obviously be the church. You call somebody a saint, they're like, I'm not a saint. And so it's just like a hero, right? They have to be a saint if they don't say I'm not a saint. It is simply people that have covenanted together by sacrifice God. We gathered together with the saints. It's not some venerated person that has to do all of these things, jump through all these hoops and all. It's not this tiny minority of just these little few people. It's God's elect. It's the ones that he has covenanted together by sacrifice. The reason that I say this is we see so many talking heads about certain things, and as we study, like Revelation is a church book. 1 Thessalonians is a church book. Those people that have covenanted together with God and sacrificed something, it takes some time and energy to be part of that covenant. You have to decide there's certain things I'm not going to do. There's certain things I am going to do, with this covenant. It's just like, any other thing you would get, like when you get married, there's things you have to deny, things that you have to shun. There's certain things you do, Brother Bill.
Well, it almost seems like apart from what God's word says,
Mm-hmm.
I always felt that in order to be deemed a saint, you had to be sanctioned by the Catholic Church.
Oh, right.
If they don't call you a saint, you ain't a saint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, who are you?
Yeah.
If God calls me a saint with his word, your word means nothing.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
I just think it's funny because the Bible very clearly defines it in Psalm 50.
Mm-hmm.
And then other religious groups decide to redefine exactly what. I mean, there's a lot of things that
And it's very clear. It's like, how can you redefine that when it's very clear that's in the Bible that this is what a saint is? And I can understand, stretching some other things because it's like, well, does it say, does it, I'm not sure. But this one is kind of like, I don't get it. I don't understand how they think that they can do that.
Yeah, and I don't know how that spills into our thoughts, that there's a vast minority, it's just these few. But no, it's the ones that have covenanted together. We are New Testament saints in the church. It's not like I'm going to call, hey, Brother Saint, I just don't keep. But Paul, as he addressed many of the churches, he called them the saints. I still like the song, when the saints go marching, I want to be in that number. I want to be part of that group. Just, again, as we look at Christianity, it's not on paper all that difficult. It's not complicated things that all these hoops that you got to jump through or anything. We decide to follow, and it's not super complicated, And in some ways, I'm kind of glad that we have chosen, as I read through all of Revelation as a group, to look at something else. We can always come back to that and study the book of Revelation, or we could have some Bible study on those things. It's interesting to me to look at things that are in some of the minor prophets, where Zechariah talks about Christ coming back and what's going to happen, But I don't mind studying. To me, 1 Thessalonians is one of the most comforting books in the entire New Testament. Paul is answering questions from people in Thessalonica that study extensively the Bible, and then they had some of these questions, so they asked Paul and wrote back to them. These are the things, because they just wanted to know. And he's like, comfort with these words. Know for a surety certain things, and I appreciate that study, to look at that. I mean, next week we'll start. I'm gone deer hunting after that, but we'll pick back up. I think it's good to read through these things, because when we experience them in the future, whether that be tomorrow, a year from now, or 1,000 years from now, we'll look at it and understand as things happen, the reason that he wrote all of this stuff down. There's just enough left out that I think when we get there and we experience it, we'll go, wow, look at that. He wrote that in Daniel, chapter 9, or Revelation chapter 10. That's why John wrote what he did, or whatever it is. That would be like when the apostles saw him clean out the temple, and they remembered some scripture about that, and like, oh man, that's back in the Psalms where it says, the zeal of my house hath eaten me up. That's fulfilling all this prophecy. And his triumphal entry, they look at that and go, oh my, that he fulfilled all those things. In the book of Acts, as they saw all of those things, we get to experience, like the apostles did, or like the church did, when we see the end of all things. I in some ways, I can't wait to see a new earth, a new heaven, and the millennial reign, the way it pans out, the way. I can't wait to see the curse lifted off the earth where there's no more. I fight at my house blackberries all the time. I want to eradicate every single blackberry vine that is on my property, and it is super hard. And I want to get rid of every single one. And I get rid of it in a spot, and then I come back a month later, and they're growing again, coming up. But I got a well, too. Some of it I just got to pull my hand or whatever, but, I can't wait to see the curse lifted. We could tell at some point that the Sahara Desert, my daughter pronounces it differently.
I heard some granddaughter that they English pronounce it Sahara.
Yeah. But that used to be a lush, it used to have lakes, it used to have trees, and it was like Oregon, but, just amazing. I don't know how much civilization that was there, but it was amazing. This earth, before it was all cursed, was very good. Before Adam ate the fig,
Sleep on the ground and not get invaded by bugs.
Right. There was none of that. So next week we'll start in 1 Thessalonians. I can't wait. Oh, table. Yeah, it's true. I mean, now you look and there's microplastics everywhere, they say. Even if you catch a fish and eat it, it's got plastics in it already. We are so good at destruction and tearing down. But I have thoroughly enjoyed studying those 7 churches. It shows us so much about the expectations of Christ when it comes to his New Testament church. You just read that and you're like, okay, I can be pleasing to God. I just got to follow his commandments and love the things that he loved. It's not that hard. So let's stand.